Hey humans, how's it going? Susan Ruth here. Thanks for listening to another episode of Hey Human Podcast. This is episode 114, and July 2016 I started this podcast, and here we are 114 episodes later. So crazy and wonderful. Thank you for continuing to help support Hey Human. I appreciate it so much. I love doing it. There's a lot of really exciting things coming. On this episode, Rood and I sat down and talked about his extraordinary experience with his family. And I don't want to give too much away because I hate doing that. And I feel like I sometimes do that in the preamble. And, you know, conversations are adventures. I want you to go on them with me. And I don't want to give too much away, as I said. So suffice it to say, Greg is a really awesome guy, and it was interesting because the conversation focused around an experience that he had with his family, and most specifically his mom. And the weekend that we sat and talked, I was having some pretty wild and woolly experiences of my own with my mom, and it was really, how do I put it? It was really pulling at my heartstrings. The relationships between mother and child have always been something, maybe a little bit of a mystery. My mom is very bright, but she's very much, does her own thing. And I would not call her motherly. So anyway, anytime I hear stories about moms and children, I am engrossed in general. So this story is no different, and it was really wonderful of Greg to share it with me. And from my understanding, this is the first time he's shared this story anywhere. So I feel very honored that he decided to be on Hey Human. If you want to see a picture of Greg and his mom, I'll put that on the Facebook page on Hey Human Podcast on Facebook. And also I'll add it to the poster under the Hey Human Podcast Instagram. So, you can do, multiple pictures on Instagram now. So just swipe around and you'll see pictures of Greg and his mom. In other news, just a reminder that Hey Human is listener supported. I don't do ads, so like PBS or something. I want to remind everybody that if you are so inclined, there is a donate button on the heyhumanpodcast.com website. I think it's under the store, actually, because I just, my friend Renfree, who's great, helped me rework the website a little bit, and I believe that's now there. Anyway, and in the store also is the poster for Hey Human, and I'm really proud of that. I think it turned out beautifully. So if you are into posters, maybe like some artwork for the wall to be framed, please check out Hey Human Podcast poster there on the website. As a reminder, I also have tons of links on the links page. Definitely check that out. Last week's there were so many links because it's a really interesting topic, UFOs and abductions. This week, it's more. I don't want to give away. See there, I almost gave it away again. This suffice it to say that every episode gets its own pile of links. So don't forget to check out the links page because I really enjoy putting all that information up there. And I hope you enjoy checking it out and learning stuff and digging deeper into whatever it is we talk about on every episode. Social media, the usual suspects, Hey Human Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. You can find me on Twitter and regular Facebook and Instagram under Susan Ruthism. I have my music website, susanruth.com, and of course, heyhumanpodcast.com. And you can email me, Susan at heyhumanpodcast.com. And I love to hear from you. So please feel inclined to do so. Say hello. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you like, what you don't like. And I read everything. So definitely do that. Gosh, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I might be not remembering. Just got back from New York. Oh, yep. Just got back from New York. That was great. Had a wonderful musical show there. Saw friends and had just a big time. I walked everywhere. It was so much fun. I'm going to be coming to Seattle, something to give a shout out about. I'll be playing music, my songs, at the Triple Door in Seattle, which that venue is gorgeous. I love playing there. And the show is on August 6th, and doors are at 6 p.m. The show is at 7:30. The food is sensational, and I am so very excited to do this show. Tickets are available, tickets.thetripledoor.net, and you can also find the ticket link at susanruth.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for making the last 2 years incredible. And I'm excited about the next years to come. Let's get to it. Here we go. Welcome, Greg Rood.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being had. I think I say that joke every single time. So I'm sure it's getting old for everyone listening. So we met in the National Podcasters I don't know what to call it. Group.
The group.
Let's call it a group.
Yeah.
Yeah. A self-help group for aspiring songwriters. See, now I don't even know where I am anymore. For aspiring podcasters. And you are a podcaster.
Yeah.
I
have 2 shows. I do an improv comedy show called Hypothetically Speaking, as well as just a general pop culture show called 3 Dicks Picks, where we talk about movies, music, and more.
I love it.
Yeah.
And no one's named Dick on the show? Or?
Nope, just three dudes, and each week we each take a turn picking the movie or the album or something random.
That's cool.
So we each change, 1 week I'll pick the movie, the next the music, and
and I'm excited to be on your show.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
The improv comedy one can go some strange places.
I'm so excited for that. And I'll let everybody know when I'm going to be on that. But,
yes.
Yeah.
It's it's a lot of fun. I do that with actually from New York and Nashville.
Yeah.
So I have a buddy here in Nashville, and then 2 of my college buddies that are in Rochester, New York, and we do it over Skype, and it's at the very least it's an awesome way to keep in touch with friends, and it's just fun.
I'm excited for it because my brother Jeremy is super duper into improv, and for my birthday this past year, he got me a weekend improv classes with David Rosowski.
Oh, cool.
Who's super great, and I had a blast, and my brother and I did it together, which was really lovely. And actually, I'm going to Seattle in August. I have a show at the Triple Door on the 6th, for everyone listening. And but I'll be taking a week of improv classes. David's coming back.
That's
awesome.
So
I'm going to do that. I'd never done it before, and I loved it.
I've always thought about taking improv classes. I'm really just an improv behind the scenes nerd. All the podcasts I listen to are improv comedy podcasts.
Yeah.
And I've just been studying it from the shadows, and this is the first time we've actually tried to do it and utilize the craft, which is such a unique section of comedy that I have just fallen in love with, because I think there's a lot of musicality to improv, which as a musician is probably why you find it interesting as well.
I think that's why maybe I was nervous to do it, but I think that's why once I just sort of threw myself into it, it was okay, because I've been on the stage so much.
Sure.
And this is improv in its own way, of course. And David has a podcast too. David Rosowski does. It's great.
What's it called?
I think my phone's in the other room, but I looked it up. It's ADD Comedy with Dave Rosowski. I'll tell you afterwards.
Yeah, definitely.
And then I'll make sure that I tell them now that I've said it. And then I'll act like I knew it instantly, and David won't be mad at me.
The Comedy Bang Bang is really the cornerstone that I go to.
Is that here?
No, that's with Scott Aukerman from...
Oh, you mean on podcast?
The podcast, yeah. That's just the cornerstone for me. That's really what got me interested in it, and the TV show, the podcast, I love it all. Yeah,
it's funny because I think I assumed going into the class that it was going to be all about humor, and what I loved about David is that he says no. Who says it has to be funny?
Yeah.
Who says it has to be yes and? Who says it has to be? I mean, it's improv, and And that means you are just making it up as you go on. You don't
Sure.
have to say, hey, everyone shout out 6 words and we're going to do that. Or you don't have to have a backstory. You can figure it out as the audience figures it out. Which was nerve-wracking, but also super exciting.
And you kind of find your own voice like you do in music too, where you realize the way you like to play with it versus what someone else might do.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. So, yeah. But here you are in my, this is now the second, I was saying before that on one of these episodes that first it was the kitchen, now it's the orange room, and slowly but surely I'm getting downstairs put together, and then it'll be in there.
Well,
it's all a process.
Oh, the amounts of times that the places we've recorded, or the amount of changes we've made, it's always, it's never good enough. You always want to make it better.
I mean, if you're not on The Nerdist or NPR or any of that stuff, and you've got, 80 producers and writers and all that stuff doing everything for you, it is very grassrootsy. And
yeah, definitely.
And what I think is cool about that, though, is the audience is learning, and it's only learning with you, as you develop and grow and all that. So that's pretty cool.
It's almost like your audience becomes proud, like, oh, look at them. They got to that.
Well, I mean, it is a family and it is communion, so that
it's
all
intimate.
Makes
That's the appeal of podcasting, is how intimate it is.
I think so. Yeah. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, you have an interesting story, and I'm not going to give anything away. I'm going to sort of start it off, though. Do you come from a big family, a little family?
Big family.
As in?
Basically, so I'm from Rochester, New York.
Rochester. I always want to say that. I don't know why. I don't know what that comes from. There must be a movie or something where somebody goes, Rochester.
Yeah, I probably, and I mean, I get made fun of for my accent from there when I never even thought I had one.
I don't think you have an accent.
It's the A's. I always get told the A's, like, whenever I say the word, like, calendar, I'm always, and only since moving to Nashville have I been made fully aware.
Did you just say
calendar is how I say it.
Calendar.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not the calendar you eat your kale by?
Yeah, exactly.
Every third Thursday, it's kale.
So
it's my calendar.
And I come from like a traditional Irish Catholic family. I'm one of only a few members of both my, from my dad's side or my mom's side that have actually left Rochester. So it's like super loving, traditional family valued, like big family values type of family that I come from. And I loved it. It was such a great way to be raised and something like that. I was very lucky.
Where are you in the birth order?
Youngest.
What?
Yeah, well, so I have 2 younger cousins, but other than that, everyone's older than me.
And how many siblings?
I have 2 older brothers. One's 7 years older than me, another one's 11 years older than me. So you've quite an age difference too.
Okay, so it's not like a crazy amount of kids in the family.
No, but like my mom has 3 siblings. My dad has a few siblings, and they all have kids, and all their kids are having kids, and everyone's in Rochester.
Did you all raise up together then?
My older brothers and cousins, they did. I was, because of the age difference, it was a little bit of a gap. I really, like when I was in high school, that's when I started spending a lot of time with my older cousins, because they were like the cool older cousins who were finally letting me hang out. But I found myself mainly surrounding myself with lots of friends, because I didn't have, even though I had a huge family, there wasn't a lot of people my age in my family.
That makes sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Huh. Did you excel in school?
I did. I in high school, for sure, I had salutatory honors. I started college a year ahead. Oh. Things didn't go as well in college as will happen when you have things happening in your life and you're figuring out who you are for the first time. That was just like the biggest thing, is like figuring out what I want to do versus what I've been brought up to think I wanted to do, and a whole bunch of stuff like that. But I enjoyed school for the most part, mainly for the social aspect. I'm a social person. I like hanging out with people, so that was really the draw there, I think.
I wonder if that's why Europe encourages the gap year.
What's that? What's the gap year?
The gap year happens after kids get out of their first 12 years of school, and then they take the gap year to go travel or just sort of discover who they are and then go to university.
That's so awesome.
It seems logical.
Yeah.
But here, of course, we go from one to the next to the next.
You're just too... I mean, some people are able to figure it out, but I feel like 18 is just too young to know what you want to do and to make the financial commitment that college and university is. To make that at that young of an age is crazy to me.
Right. Well, in Europe, of course, college is free. Lucky.
Lucky, yeah. I went to a state school in New York, so it wasn't crazy expensive, but I mean, when you have nothing.
I mean, I went to a state school.
Yeah.
So.
I loved it, though. I
loved college.
Yeah, I had
really
a blast.
Did. I hated, with every ounce of my being, high school and junior high, but...
Really?
Oh, yeah, and to be honest, even elementary school wasn't my favorite, but I loved college.
I never hated school. Like, that was never... Because I'm also a musician, so, like, being in band, like, I was in jazz band. Like, every band that I could be a part of, I was a part of. I played football, so I think those were the reasons why I didn't hate going to school so much, because I had so much fun when I was doing those things.
I wish I had, I guess the best way to put it is felt good enough about myself to have explored all those things, but I wasn't that kid. I was awkward and shy and didn't really understand kids. I liked adults, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it would have made a difference had I been into sports or music or what. I mean, I always loved music, always, but I didn't know that I could necessarily... I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the best friends I have to this day from that part of my life were friends that I made, like, through music.
Yeah.
So that was the big reason why I think I didn't dread going to school back then.
I'm envious of people that have friends that they've had since elementary or, first grade or kindergarten. And there are out there, where they have these lifelong friends. I think, my gosh, that's so cool. And bizarre where they're more like your family,
Yeah, I feel like the furthest friend goes back for me is probably 6th grade. But even that's a long time.
It's a very long time. Yeah, so cool. Are you super close with your parents then?
Yeah.
More mom or dad, or both equally?
Equally, I think. There's the certain things you take to dad and certain things you take to mom, but they've have been dying to come visit Nashville recently. And I stay close to them. That's the one thing. Like, and they won't let me not stay close. Like my mom lives for family. Like, some people want to be an actor, or be a musician, and she just wanted to be a mother and have a family. So that's what she devoted her life to, and that's what she enjoys.
Yeah. So no career for her other than motherhood, which is a hell of a career, of course.
I mean, her career was kind of motherhood. She was a kindergarten teacher in the city of Rochester.
Cool.
And nice. So that's just an extension of that.
Mothering.
Exactly.
Aww.
Yeah.
Well, thank her for her service.
Right?
Because I think that's an extremely important job.
Ooh, and tough.
Yeah.
I used to go in and like help her with, because my school would either have a day off and she didn't or something like that, and I'd go in and help with her class, and man, that is wild. Rough. You see some rough stuff too. Like, obviously it's the joys and chaotic that comes with little kids, but you also see some rough situations that you have to,
like family dynamic,
and having to call Child Protective Services, and it's a special kind of person to be able to handle something like that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Did she handle stress well?
Yeah, the fact that I never really saw it get to her, I would say so. I was aware of some of the hard things she had seen, and she'd like used those as teaching experiences for me, like telling me, this is, you're lucky, some people aren't as lucky, this is what they've had to deal with, and I know it got to her, but she never really let it show.
Did you believe her when she'd tell you stuff like that?
I mean, eventually you couldn't not believe her. Like, the stories were too many, and when you go in, you'd see it.
Yeah.
And my cousin, she also became a teacher in the city, so like the two of them, they were very empathetic towards each other because they were seeing the same things, and it's, like I said, special kind of person. It's a tough job, and they're doing doing the work that is actually, I feel like, important. Sometimes in entertainment, you feel like what you're doing isn't essential, and that what they are doing and did do is like undoubtedly essential.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Take us to the moment you found out your mom was sick.
Yeah, so I was in college. I don't remember specifically the conversation when I was told that she had, she was diagnosed with cirrhosis, which is a liver disease.
Was she a drinker?
Not at all.
Okay.
Like, not at all. Never in her life either. Like, it's one of those things where even the doctors, outside of like a genetic predisposition, never really came up with a good reason. Just like a bunch of little
hiccups.
Yeah, just a lot of little things along the way, and it's just one of those things. Which is also, it's weird because you hear cirrhosis, you immediately think drinking. Like,
of course.
There's no other way of getting it, but...
Well, I'm sure there are. I just, I wondered because...
Sure.
A stressful job, all these other factors, and...
I remember one time we were camping, and you could tell my mom had been stressed out because she had one beer. Like, that's how little of a drinker she was. She never drank.
And so is cirrhosis a cancer, or is it different?
It's not cancer. It's different. It's, I honestly don't know enough about all I know is that it shuts down the liver.
Yeah.
It
necrotizes it. It just starts to die, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And the liver just doesn't function the way it's supposed to. And and all of the problems that causes for the rest of your body. So it's a pretty serious thing. And, they did their best at keeping it in check for a while. There's this number. I can never remember what it was, but there's this number, and we're always wondering what's that number, because the number, if it's too high, like she's getting to a severity of like she's too sick and like things are getting bad. But if the number's low, like she's doing good. So that was like the check. What's the number this week, this month? How you feeling? My number's good, There was always that kind of thing.
So if you were in college, you were in college when your parents sat you down and said, "This is going on," how did you respond? Because our parents are supposed to be these immortal beings, right. and it isn't really until we are in much later in life that we start to realize, oh wait, people are starting to die.
Right. It was weird. My dad had actually, this wasn't like the first time my parents had been sick. So it wasn't like that kind of thing where like this is the first time I'm realizing the mortality of my parents. Like my dad is a survivor of prostate cancer. He had also been in a bad motorcycle accident and come out of that.
Man. So
like we were growing the callus towards this kind of thing. Like we were finding our ways of dealing with it, or it wasn't. This was not the first time I'm like, holy crap! Like my parents are sick. Like we had been through that initial realization of the mortality, and this is the next one, and the coming to realize that this is probably the most serious one, and it obviously got to that point for sure.
What is the survival rate of cirrhosis of the liver, if untreatable, or if it's just sort of?
Yeah, I wish I had the actual number, but I know that once it gets to a certain point, it's low. Like
you need your liver.
Exactly.
Right. It's the vacuum of the body, right? It sucks out all the bad things.
Yep, everything gets filtered through the liver.
Yeah.
Everything, everything that you put in that gets in the bloodstream goes right through the liver.
So my best friend Ellen, who loves to vacuum, will now have to decide that the liver is her favorite. That and her wine consumption. Well, just kidding, Elle.
So, it's crazy because, the liver is actually, it grows back. It's one of the organs that
Doesn't everything grow back except the brain? I thought all of our cells rejuvenate.
No, you can't.
Or both rejuvenate.
Like as far as like a kidney, you can live with one, not both. But like
it won't repair itself.
Exactly. But like the liver, you can chop off a certain portion of it, and then that portion will grow back, which is really cool.
And weird.
Yeah, and
super weird.
When you're that sick, and you're at the point where you would need an organ donor.
So she got to that point?
Yeah. So
how long did it take from diagnosis?
Years.
Oh, okay. Was she on dialysis and stuff?
No, because dialysis is for the kidneys.
Kidneys, yeah.
But she did. So, she, they were keeping tabs on it, trying to keep it under control for a while, and then the
liver makes you. I'm sorry to keep interrupting. No, is fine. The liver the one that will make you turn yellow if it's?
That's kidneys.
That's
because that's jaundice.
Too. Jaundice. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm getting my organs right. I'm just getting them all straight in my brain pan. Okay.
But it got to a point where she actually fell into a coma. She started. There was an infection in fluids that were surrounding the liver. And it made her very sick. And the doctors were having a hard time getting that under control. And it got to a point where she was in a coma for 3 months, I think even a little longer.
In the hospital?
Mm-hmm.
Holy crap.
Yeah, and the weeks leading up to that were obviously not fun. Or it was one of the hardest times.
Were you in college at this time? So did you have to bail on college because...
I was able to take some time to come home specifically for this portion of things. And it was rough.
What was going through your heart and mind at that point? Did you think that was it?
Well, I don't know. I don't think I thought that was it because I'm kind of an optimistic person. I can be delusional and just tell myself that's not going to happen. I guess the hardest part was knowing that. So my mom, like I said, I come from an Irish Catholic family. My mom's a devout Catholic, and I am not. And this was one of those things that I kept thinking about. Was my mom has been just the ideal best person. She taught kids. She loved her family. She didn't drink. She was just a good person where something terrible happened for no reason. And I feel like that was the hardest part is the entire family being there for my mom, and her whole entire life she was there for her family. And just it would almost make it easier if she was a drinker, because at least there's a reason. But the fact that there was no good reason and it was just happening to a good person. Did
you have you mentioned just now, you said, she's a devout Catholic, I am not. Mm-hmm. What does that mean exactly?
So I guess you would say atheist. Okay. I don't like that label necessarily because I think it has a lot of negative connotations with it. But I'm not a believer. In fact, I feel like this situation was one of the... I held out hope for a long time. I grew up, I was... First communion, I was confirmed, all that stuff, and I think this situation was one of those things that severed those last ties of hoping that there was some because it just didn't make sense. How could there be a benevolent God when something like this was happening to such a genuinely good person? Mm-hmm. But suffice to say that she woke up from this coma when no one thought she was going to. The doctors, I remember. I do remember the exact moment. I had gone back to school because obviously I couldn't take months off. So I'd gone back to school, and the doctors were having a meeting with my family, and to update them on the status of how my mom was doing. And my buddy and I were leaving the house. We were going to go get some subs, just a normal day. And then my phone rings. It's my dad. And I knew that this meeting was going, so I answered the call, and that was the moment where my dad was like, your mom's not going to wake up. And that was just obviously awful. I remember I got that phone call, and we're driving to the sub shop, and we get to a red light, and I just got out of the car. We were miles from home. I just, and because I wasn't even home with family to deal with that, it was rough to be told, for her to not technically have passed, but being told that she might as well have was, obviously crazy. Yeah. But she woke up, and what they would say is an act of God, and...
So how did by calling it that, where did that place you with your...
I know, right?
It's a juxtaposition of, of where you were.
I feel like it would do the doctors a disservice to credit that to God, because the doctors were just incredible. But it is, like, I will say it's one of those things, just as, like, it's unexplained on how she came down with it, it's also unexplained how she woke up.
Yeah. Does she remember being in a coma? Does she have any recollection or reflection on that?
I mean, I feel like if being honest, like it was such a rough time that I feel like no one in my family has really talked about that in length, in a healing way. It's like, we all went through something, we should talk about it. Well, that never really happened.
Why do you think that is? Because, I know that families don't talk about stuff. That's historically to be true in every family. But why do you think for your family that didn't happen?
I think because my family's probably like me, and that's how I cope with that sort of stuff. Like, I would see it as, that's just, like, why bring it up? You know, it's a painful conversation to have, a tough conversation to have. And with all the pain that you had just experienced dealing with that, why relive it? Mm-hmm. So I feel like that's probably why. I also think it's something that'll probably happen with time, because it's been 5 years now, I think. 5 or 6 years.
That's extraordinary.
So it's been a while, but it's... I still think it takes time to even have that conversation. Like, I bet in, like, 10 years, you know, you would probably have that conversation. It'll be easier than having it so close to the actual... event. Yeah.
I'm curious, when you got the phone call from your father... that said your mom might as well be gone.
Right.
I assume they started talking about what to do next. Do they unplug her? Do they do this?
Exactly.
So as a family, how do you deal with that? And then clearly that didn't happen. So then what? You're like, yeah, pull the plug, or no, don't pull the plug, and then a miracle happens.
Yeah, it was real. That's where the conversation ended. It was like, this is how they tell us. This is the situation, right? And we have to decide what to do from here. And being away at school, I was sheltered from a lot of those situations, those decisions. I wasn't really involved in any of that. So I don't know how...
you, or was that okay?
It doesn't bother me. I mean, it saved me from certain pains, and I know, like, my family was wanting me to focus on school at the time, and only cueing me in when it was really important.
And your eldest sibling, I suppose, was probably pretty present.
Yeah, they were both. Both of my older brothers were there. My oldest brother was there the entire time.
Yeah.
He lives in Rochester.
Okay.
So he was there the entire time. My other brother, I believe he was living in New York at the time, New York City. But he was coming back, spending more time than I was at home, too. Mm-hmm. So they were there, more cued in on that sort of thing.
So how did that go down, that conversation to have about your mom's well-being and right to life or death or all that stuff?
You know, I really don't know if it ever happened to the point of they made a decision whether they were going to pull or not, because she woke up. I think they, you know, I can't imagine making that call to do that sort of thing. So I imagine they were just not making the call yet.
How soon between the first call you got when they said, no, it's not going to happen, and she woke up? How long of a time period was that?
Under 2 weeks. It was soon. Yeah, real soon. Like, to the point where it was like whiplash. Like, very jarring. And it did not take that much time, which is why I don't think they ever got to that point where they had officially decided this is what we're going to do. Because I got that call, and within, I think, 10 days, I got another call saying she's awake. And obviously all the joy that comes with, it was crazy.
Man.
And so she got better for a while. Not great, you know, but obviously way better than what she was.
Still in the hospital, or did she
She was in the hospital for a long time.
How did your family pay for all that?
My dad worked for Kodak, and my mom being a teacher, they have great insurance. That to say, it was crazy expenses, I'm sure still, But they had, it's all insurance. They had great insurance for that sort of thing. Lucky enough, you know.
Okay. And they didn't cap it out or anything after all that? Because I have friends, for example, that have gone through cancer and ended up homeless.
Right.
While still trying to treat it because their insurance money ran out. So I just didn't know. 3 months seems like a really long time to be in the hospital. Yeah.
I mean, my family is in a pretty lucky situation to have been able to deal with that.
Yeah.
The way they were able to, just, with people we knew in hospitals and the fact that my parents did have the insurance coverage they did.
Thank God.
And that we had people in the family helping us through it, making sure we were making the right decisions.
Yeah.
As far as doctors and procedures and stuff like that go.
How was your dad through all of this?
Oh, my dad was a rock. He literally stayed every night. I think in those 3 months, there might have been 7 total nights that he didn't stay in the hospital, which is just insane. And he was never broken. He was strong.
And I assume he has a faith in, or has that tested him as well?
No, he believes.
Yeah.
Definitely. I'm sure it helped him. He's not as outward about it as my mom is. He's more of a private guy when it comes to that sort of thing. But, he's not shy of being, he goes to church every day, singing loud with everyone.
Okay. Every day?
Every week.
I was going to say,
every
wow.
Sunday. Not every day.
Holy moly.
Every Sunday. So I'm sure that helped him through it. But, like, the I don't know, he was just such a rock through the whole thing. I was never worried for him. He always was, like, putting me and my brothers at ease. It just, I don't know, I can't imagine.
He sounds like a remarkable person.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those, like, that's a father,
Yeah.
It's one of those times.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that. So, Mom wakes up and y'all have to decide what to do next. And she's still not getting better.
Getting better, but relatively so. Like, she's not, as sick as she was, but she's getting better, she's getting worse, she's getting better, she's getting worse.
So with the cirrhosis, as we talked about a second ago, when you do a dissection on a liver, it'll grow back.
Yeah.
So with cirrhosis, that doesn't happen, or?
Cirrhosis is just like it's tainting the entire liver.
So no matter where you
cut
it's not like out, you can't.
Yeah, you can't like cut out the cirrhosis. It's the entire liver is infected by it.
Okay.
And I think about a year later, maybe a little less than a year later, she got sick again, like really bad again. She wasn't in a coma this time. And this time I was sheltered from way more of the details the second time around.
Why?
Honestly, I didn't handle this whole situation well. So I think my family was doing that for my benefit, and I also wasn't seeking that information because I was away at school. It was way easier for me than the rest of my family to kind of forget about it or try to forget about it, put it in the back of my head. I had such great friends around me that were distracting me from that.
It's interesting to me that you say that you didn't handle it well. I think when it comes to pain and suffering and emotion, it makes people in general super uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
And in my family, for example, I'm the emotional one, and my dad's always saying to me, "Oh, you get so emotional. Try not to get so emotional. Try not to be so empathic. Try not,
Right.
And I know he does that out of worry, and I try and say, guess what? I get to have any feeling I want to.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that happens a lot in families where the person, in a way, if there's already stoicism happening, like your dad's being a rock, your brother's being rocks, even your mom in her own way being a rock, and you're the conduit for all the emotion. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you're a lightning rod for everything that everyone else isn't doing. And I mean,
that actually makes a lot of sense.
I'm a youngest child, and maybe that's a youngest child thing, that we absorb the family everything.
Yeah, because
spit it back out.
Because really, obviously it was heavy on everyone, but my entire family was remarkably strong through it all.
But not you.
Yeah, I mean...
I wouldn't been either. I mean, I get it. I totally... It's not to say people who are stoic also aren't entitled to their stoicism. I think because I see myself in you that I say that.
Right.
But maybe it is because we become the thing that they can't be.
Yeah, that I've never thought of it that way, but that makes sense. And the other thing I mean by I didn't handle it well is like I wasn't how my dad was there for my brothers. Like I don't feel like at any point I was doing any good for any. I wasn't setting anyone else at ease. I don't like thinking back on it. I clearly didn't handle that portion well. I mean, as well as you can. It's not something you can prepare for.
There's no rule book for that. So did she get out of the hospital between the two?
She did. She did get between the coma and the second time she got real bad. She was able to come home. At that point I was at school, so that whole time I don't have tons of details on how better she got. All I know is that it eventually got to the point where she was back in the hospital, which she was in and out all the time, but now she was back in the hospital, real sick again. Same sort of conversation with the doctors in my family, where they're like, this is bad, probably as bad, if not worse than the first time, and we don't know if she's going to make a recovery. So now I'm having this conversation for a second time. And, like I said, this time, that whole second part, way sheltered from. And for better or for worse, But my mom got better again. Like, she's a fighter, and so she got better again. But the crazy thing, and we realized that, she needs a new liver.
And how old is she at this point?
So she's late 50s, early 60s at this point.
Okay.
And we knew so she recovered from this thing that she wasn't supposed to again, which is, miraculous. So we realized that she just needs a new liver. There had been that conversation throughout this whole time about the possibility of getting a new liver from a cadaver. But it's weird. You have to be sick enough to qualify and to move up the list. So they have like this list of people that need livers, right? And you have to be sick enough to move up the list to get a liver, but not too sick where your body couldn't handle the operation. And that's such a thin margin to be in, where she was either healthy enough where she was way down the list and was never going to get a cadaver donor, or she was too sick and couldn't take one because her body wouldn't have been able to do the operation. And that's like such a stressful situation. Like, get sick but not too sick, get healthy but not too healthy, because ultimately, like, the carrot at the end of the stick is the operation, the transplant. That's what you want. But it's so
and
it's
you
so
also
crazy.
have to know that you're not going to reject whatever you get too. So
Exactly.
There's all that takes place.
And there's
trying to find a matching donor and yeah.
And
I don't know how long livers survive outside the body, but I assume that they also have to wait for someone to pass away so that they can harvest the organs and then have all those surgeries. I mean, everything is like such a perfection balance going on.
Oh, it's like, and things can change like that.
Yeah.
Like, all of a sudden, now there's a liver available, now it's gone. It's so crazy. Yeah. The list of people who need organ transplants is so long, and I think everyone should be an organ donor. Like, what are you going to do with your body when you're gone? Like, help someone else, because it's so crazy that you have to ride such a thin line of not too sick, not too healthy. So we came to the realization that she needed a live donor. If she was going to get a new liver, it wasn't going to be from a cadaver, it was going to be from a person. Meaning
that you weren't going to have to wait on the list for her to get it.
Exactly.
You had to find somebody
to
somewhere.
Donate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which is also crazy. And my entire family, everyone offered. Everyone. My dad, my brothers, my cousins, my uncles, my aunt, anyone who was healthy enough offered. But my brothers and I kind of talked about it and were like, we want to be the ones to do it, and My oldest brother had some pre-existing medical conditions that took him out. He couldn't do it. My middle brother, he's a healthy dude. He was started right away with the process.
What does that mean?
Oh, it's so long. So you have to, you first of all, we had to pick a hospital. Because we're from Rochester, New York, and they have Strong Memorial Hospital, which is where she spent most of her time. And it's a great hospital. Super lucky to have a hospital that nice in Rochester, but a live organ transplant is a very specialized procedure. So you want to go to the best place possible for something like that. So we looked at a bunch of different hospitals, the Mayo Clinic, ultimately deciding on Cleveland Clinic. Superb track record, top 3 hospitals in the country, and only 4 hours away. So that's where we decided that we were going to have the operation take place. And there's a whole team of doctors for my mom, a whole team of doctors for the donor, for my brother. You have to, all the tests for like making sure that you're healthy, and every major, you meet with doctors for every major system in your body. And all the doctors are different. So my mom would have 12, say, like, I'm not kidding, like 12 doctors on her team, and my brother would have 12 on his team, completely different doctors. Their team was to be in the best interest of their patient. So my brother's doctors, their interest wasn't getting my mother a liver. Their interest was making sure that my brother was healthy enough and that it was going to be safe for him to do it.
Makes sense. I'm glad they have those checks and balances.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. Is it an automatic that he would be compatible with her because he's her son, or is it still...
It's way more likely,
okay,
but it's not 100%.
Okay.
There's so many things that go into that. You have a liver biopsy. They even, at one point, there's only, I think, 2 places in the world that can do it, but they send an imaging of your organ to Germany, and they make an actual 3D physical representation of the organ that
and
you
Hannibal
can
Lecter looks at it.
Yeah, exactly.
He says, I'll eat that. It's good.
Like something you can actually hold in your hands.
Oh, wow. They make a model liver?
All of your liver, and they don't let you keep it, which is stupid.
Aww.
So,
I want that.
My brother went through all of that, and he was cleared as like a suitable donor. The surgery was scheduled, hotels were booked. My family, my brother and my parents were legitimately driving from Rochester to Cleveland a week before the surgery. Like, they're getting there early, and they get a call from the doctors, because the week before the surgery, my brother's team of doctors, they all get together, go over everything one last time, make sure everything's good. And in that 3D rendering, they noticed an issue they hadn't seen before, because of all there's so many little tubes going in and out of the liver. Like, so many of them.
Okay.
And I don't know exactly the details, but they were wrapped around the liver in a way where the procedure was going to be way riskier than they had originally anticipated for my brother.
And they didn't realize this until the very last minute.
Very last minute. Like, they were on their way to Cleveland, and they got that call.
Wow. So
my brother was deemed, he still could have done it, but it would have been way riskier. So then I started. I was like, all right, my turn, Where
is your family in all that? Like, that must have been so traumatic.
Yeah, like
you're there, you're getting ready to drive to the thing.
It's like running it's like running the marathon, and you're at the finish line, and then they're like, nope, just kidding.
And they
another 5 miles.
Line.
Yeah. Yeah, it was crazy. It was like, with so much pain and things not going right, it seemed like he's suitable donor, surgery, things were looking good. And then just such a blow right when you think you're there.
Mm-hmm.
You see the light at the end of the tunnel, and now you have to start from scratch. And through this whole time, I was kind of preparing myself for that possibility anyway.
Were you scared?
When I say I wasn't, I truly wasn't, and I don't know why. Like, I don't think that's bravery necessarily. I just think, like I mentioned, I can be pretty delusional. I can convince myself of things, and I just, I never entertained the idea that anything bad was ever going to happen.
Now, how old are you at this point when you say, okay, I'm next in queue, here we go?
24.
Okay. So young, strapping.
Yeah, I'm 27
healthy.
now.
Okay.
And it's so crazy. And I wasn't home. That's the other thing. Like,
you were in college.
I was still in school. So got this news that my brother was no longer going to work out and that I had to start while I was at school. So I didn't even have family around, but I had awesome friends that made it so they made me feel like a rock star when they found out that now I had to start doing this.
Did you have to change things like your diet?
Absolutely.
No drinking, I assume?
No drinking.
Yeah. Healthy
foods, exercise, like just living that clean life.
To prepare this.
And and that can be so difficult and like just trying to better yourself for yourself. But when you have that as the reason for it, it wasn't hard at all.
Yeah.
It's just, and that is a very big thing that makes those small life changes very inconsequential. So it took a long time. And that's when I had my experience of my 12 doctors. And I mean, I even had to meet with an ethicist. The Cleveland Clinic has an entire department of just philosophers who are,
that'd be the coolest job.
And I was a philosophy major in college.
What?
So when I met with this guy and when I decided to be a philosophy major, I heard all the jokes from my family. What are you going to do? Open up a philosophy store?
Yeah.
Like, what do you do with a philosophy degree? I just enjoyed it. So that's why I wanted to major in it. So when I saw this guy, I was like, this guy, he's working at the Cleveland Clinic. He's a philosopher. Like, there's actual, meaningful positions in that world. And also like psychologists to make sure that I wasn't being coerced, that I was doing this because I wanted to do it.
Did they ask you ethical questions or was it more philosophical questions?
Ethical entirely. Like they drilled me about whether or not like people were forcing me, if I felt like I had to do this.
But see, that's a tricky question, isn't it? To feel like you have to do something, that becomes more philosophical than ethical almost in and of itself because
I can feel like I have to do it
because
but
it's
I'm not
family,
but no one's making me feel that way. I make myself feel that way.
Right. So those are some thin lines to walk on.
And the biopsy was the craziest thing.
Did it hurt?
It feels like pressure, like when you when you get something done on your teeth, where you don't feel the pain of it, but you feel the pressure of it. They stab you, and you're awake for it. I remember the doctor was like playing cheesy music, trying to like make it lighthearted, and it was just a strange atmosphere. But they give you the pain meds, they numb the area, and then they just take a giant needle and they stab you with it, and you watch them do it, and they just take little cells of the liver to test to make sure that the liver's healthy, that you're a match, all that kind of stuff. I can't tell you how many vials of blood that was taken. Like I said, I met with a doctor that specializes in every major system of the body, and that's one of the cool things is like I got the biggest medical workup of my entire life.
Yeah, hear that, ladies? He's clean as a whistle.
It took a while, but I was eventually deemed a suitable donor.
Mm-hmm. How long is a while?
I want to say it was between 2 and 3 months.
And all the while you're hoping to God Mom doesn't die while you're going through all this.
Yeah, and lucky enough, during this portion, she wasn't in her worst state. Like she was doing relatively well. So although we knew this had to happen, it wasn't like it's not like we were like, we only have 6 months, there's no timetable like that. It was just like, we need this to happen and we need it to happen now so that what has happened twice already doesn't happen a third time, because you never know when that can happen. So that was kind of the clock. There wasn't like, you only have so much time left. It's, if this thing could happen a third time, and if it happens, every time it happens, the likelihood of coming back is significantly lower every time.
Sure.
But between my family and friends, like it really was not as hard of a thing to get myself prepared for as you would think. That is to say, up until it actually happens. because I think you're just like you can really convince yourself of some things where I sat down with doctors and they told me that I could die. They're like they ran me through all of the things that could go wrong, and that the percentage of the likelihood of me passing away on the table, like that was a thing that could have happened. It was low. Okay. It was like, but it was still 10% chance is still more than you're dealing with normally. But even through all that, it never was as hard as you. And it's weird saying that, but I think it's just because I was so lucky enough to have family on my side and friends on my side that I don't know, it never seemed as crazy as it actually was, that situation. That is until you actually get to the hospital, because that's when everything changes. August 4th, 2014 was the date that was scheduled for the surgery. We got to Cleveland the weekend before. The nerves. I remember I hate baseball. I'm not a baseball fan at all. We went to a Cleveland Indians baseball game just to like pass the time, do something, get your mind off what's coming that Monday morning. I had family that even came to Cleveland. They got hotel rooms. They stayed through the procedure. I had to have a caretaker in my hospital room throughout the entire procedure.
What do you mean?
A family member because my dad and my brothers obviously want to split time between me and my mom, mm-hmm. but I needed someone who was going to be devoted to me throughout the nights in the hospital, and my uncle did that for me, which is crazy. So many people in my family put like their life on hold for that whole thing, which was,
it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's great. So he stayed with me the entire time in the hospital. It was 6 a.m, Monday morning, you get woken up, put in the hospital bed, and...
Do you remember what you were thinking then and now? Because here we are at 0 dark 30.
Yeah.
What?
A lot of things, like, this is actually happening. Like, it almost felt like the entire time leading up to that point that it was never actually going to happen. That, this isn't actually happening. I'm not actually going to be put under and sliced open. Like, that's not it. And then...
And how much would they have to take in order for this to work?
They can take different amounts, but I think they were planning to take about 60% of my liver.
Holy moly.
Yeah. So that's a big...
And then they take out all of hers and replace it with your 60%, mm-hmm. and then hope for the best. That's the plan.
That's the plan.
All right, so here you are, wake up, 6 a.m.
Yeah, and... my whole family's there, everyone, like, no one slept the night before, and that's the ride from so I'm in the VIP area in the Cleveland Clinic, like, where LeBron James goes when he goes to the hospital. This is where I was. They treat their donors like kings there. The service at Cleveland Clinic is remarkable. But the ride in my bed from that super nice room it was like 2 rooms with flat screen TVs and an awesome view of the city, and now I'm being wheeled down to the cold basement and the cold operating room, and the family's walking with you the whole time, and that felt like forever. That is like you're being wheeled towards what you've been planning, working for this entire time, and it's a really surreal thing. And then so I get all the way to the operating room, and then my mom's there. So she's there in her hospital bed, I'm in my hospital bed.
You're next to each other.
Before we go into our operating room. So we were in separate operating rooms, across the hall from each other. Mm-hmm. But before either of us went into our rooms, we were able to see each other. That was the hardest.
Holy, it's gonna make me cry. How did you even handle that?
I didn't. My mom went in, and then my coordinator, because I had a coordinator who, facilitated my communication through all the doctors. And she let me compose myself before I went in. And then, that's crazy. Huge room, cold, so cold.
Did your mom exchange words? Was she conscious?
Yeah. Crying, like I'm doing right now. That's really all it was.
Yeah.
And then you go in, and now all the doctors that you've met individually are now all in the room together, and they're pros. They make you laugh, like really set you at ease, doing a really good job at like making sure I don't freak out. Because it was easy to. There's this huge like octopus looking contraption that hangs above me, and just with like lights, and I don't know, it was the craziest looking thing. The room was huge, and there was just medical equipment everywhere. Obviously everyone's all scrubbed up, and it was just very intense, but all the doctors were cracking jokes, and it really, unlike the biopsy where it was very strange, it was like a very good mood and a good vibe in that room that really set me at ease.
It's good. There's a lot of research to back up why that's important, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And they put this, like, crown of sensors on me because they monitor your brain activity to make sure that you have enough drugs to stay under, but not too much, and so you don't wake up, So they fit me with this whole crown of sensors that's just going to monitor my brain activity the whole time. And then the anesthesiologist comes over, starts like telling you all the stuff about, how much they're giving you, and like that matters to me. That's probably just things they have to tell you legally. But then he starts counting down from 100. By 97, I'm out. Mm-hmm. And I was out for 10 hours.
That's how long the surgery was?
Surgery was 10 hours long.
Can you imagine the surgeons doing that?
Oh, they can't go to the bathroom. Like, they're just in that room the entire time.
Unbelievable.
And to think of, like, the intricacy, like, the detail, and I can't even begin to imagine how difficult that has to be, and how grueling 10 hours without any break, with someone's life literally in your hands.
And then to excise that 60% of liver and deliver it across the hall.
Right, exactly.
And time that perfectly for your mom to be under, but not under too long or not long, all that stuff. That's just, to me, insane.
And then my entire family having to be out in the waiting room for 10 hours.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you know who John Panette is, the comedian?
I don't think so.
He's a little bit more old school stand-up comic, but my uncle was a big fan of his. My uncle who stayed with me in the hotel, or in the hospital. And I remember my family telling me that he was just showing everyone comedy, like YouTube videos, trying to keep everyone...
Smart.
And the Cleveland Clinic, they have like walking tours of modern art, and lots of holistic healers out there, like giving hand massages and passing out essential oils. Dogs everywhere.
Yay!
So they have a lot of stuff to like keep you occupied. And honestly, from what I was told, they were getting nothing but positive updates from the doctors. So even though it was taking a long time, it's not like...
I think that's the kind of thing you want them to take a long time.
Yeah, definitely. Take your time, get that right.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like they weren't getting updates and like something's wrong, something's taking a long time. Sure. Everything was going according to plan.
Sure.
It was just taking a long time. And I hardly remember anything about that, like, because I woke up in post-op, obviously, and I barely remember anything about that day. That's basically all gone, because I had they say something like for every hour you're under, that the anesthesia stays in your body for a month. So I was under for 10 hours, so I had that in me for 10 months.
Whoa.
So the immediate wake up, I have a lot of it in me right away, and I was super just out of it. The next day I remember way better, because I had an issue where, I have the huge scar that starts right below my sternum, goes all the way down to my belly button, and then all the way over to the right side of my body. So fresh off of the surgery table, that hurts. That's tons of staples, so much, and my bed was constantly moving. And my nurse was telling me I was imagining it. And I'm saying, like, the bed was moving, like, my left side of my body up and then down, my right side up and down.
Like you're on a boat?
Yeah. Like I was almost on a water bed.
Oh.
But, like, more mechanical. And it was driving me insane. It hurt, obviously. And it was just, like, not what you want. I want to lay here and not move at all. And my nurse was telling me I was imagining it, that it wasn't happening. So eventually, the nurse's assistant came in, and I told her about the problem. She came right over and, like, fixed it in 2 seconds. It was a setting on the bed that they have for people who can't get out of bed for weeks on end, so they don't get bed sores.
Oh my God.
So it's like it's purposeful thing that was not meant for someone in my...
that nurse didn't...
Oh, that nurse... Cleveland Clinic was amazing. That nurse was not.
I knew you were going to say that. It happens. The Nurse Ratchet.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we called it the whole time. And it got to the point where the next day I was cleared to go back up to my nice room in the VIP wing. Might have actually been that very next day. And my mom was in post-op too. And we were where she was going to be after post-op and where I was going to be after post-op are wildly different places. And the Cleveland Clinic campus is gigantic. So it would take like 15 minutes for family members to get from me to my mom. So I knew that was going to happen.
Because you needed different levels of care.
Yeah, and like they wanted me in the VIP, and she's obviously needs to be monitored way more heavily than I did. And I knew that this was the closest I was going to be. I hadn't seen her since before we went in. I wanted to say something to her before I went upstairs. And the nurse was like, no, can't do it. That's too far out of the way. The doctors just want you to go straight to your room. And my dad tried talking to her. My brothers tried talking to her. She would just not let it happen. And then eventually that nurse's assistant comes back in, the one who saved me from the bed. And I told her, and she's like, oh, that's ridiculous. And she was able to schedule it so that I was to be brought up to my room during a shift change so that head nurse wasn't going to be there. So that the assistant could be the one to take me upstairs, and she took me by my mom.
Aww. We love the assistant. Yay, assistant.
Yeah. And that was awesome. Like, I didn't get to be right up next to her, and I obviously didn't get to stay there for too long, but that was like...
Was she conscious at that point?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was a victory moment for sure.
I mean, I think about just the whole thing of it, that here's this woman who gave birth to her child, and then it chokes me up, and then her child in turn gives birth to her.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, and at that point, after all the years of like pain and terrible stuff, and then the lead up to make sure that this happens, and then that moment, it had happened, and it was successful, and it was great. And even though it was only like a minute, I was so happy that she let us do that before I went upstairs, because then I didn't see my mom again for days, until I was well enough to be...
How long was that? How long were you in recoup?
So I was only in the hospital for a week after, which sounds like a short amount of time considering. But what was weird is the first 4 days were awful. So bad. I you know how you have that thing when you're around family, you don't swear, like it's just one of those things that kind of, you don't even think about it.
I don't have that family, but I do understand that, yeah.
I have that family. It's one of those things that when I'm around family, and I don't even have to think about censoring myself, it just never comes up. And my uncle tells me like, that I just dropped a hard F-bomb, like right in front of my family. They asked me how I was doing, and I was like, not good. and then they had this tube that was coming right out the side of my body, like right from the incision, that was supposed to be collecting fluid to like get out of it. You know, they're trying to take away from the incision area, and it wasn't working right, and it hurt so bad. And they also gave me Dilaudid, which is like a crazy strong pain med, and I had a reaction to that, and I started breaking out into hives.
Oh no!
So then they had to give me Benadryl through my central line right in the neck, which I take children's Benadryl and I'm out for 8 hours. So that was wild. Really, like I was having such crazy vivid dreams. I remember
bet.
One time I was laying in the hospital bed and I was like, I am so thirsty. I need some water. And I can't drink water. They just have like those sponges that you can like dip in water to wet your mouth. And I was like, I want to do that so bad. My eyes weren't open. I was like, did I just grab water? I think I'm still thirsty. And then I realized, nope, I hadn't. I just been like, yeah, it was wild. And then they had to like take me back down to take x-rays because things weren't going accordingly. And that I had to like stand up and stand still. And it was just, I had probably like 75 staples across my chest, and it hurt so bad. Those first 3 days were the worst days of my entire life as far as like physical pain.
But would you do it all over again?
100%.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is that they told me, like the nurses kept telling me, you're going to feel better. Just give it time. And then like, I think it was the Thursday morning, I woke up, felt 100 times better. Wednesday, I felt like I was dying. And then Thursday, I felt fine. Like, not fine, but better. So much better. And then by Saturday, I was out into the hotel.
Now, how long does it take a person who's healthy like you to rejuvenate that missing 60%?
They actually don't have, like, because I looked into that, and there's no set time. They really just monitor it. It's less than a year. So remarkably fast.
Right around when the anesthesia wears off.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's completely full size now.
Is that not so insane?
It's awesome. But the thing is, you can only do it once, I guess. I'm sure you could maybe do it twice, but it's like super risky. So even though it's just like a one and done thing, like I could never donate my liver again.
So where is your mom in all this? Where is she now? How is she doing?
She's doing great. So
it worked.
It worked. They said it like was a perfect match. They couldn't have asked for a better situation for it. I had to. So I also needed. So I went to a hotel. I had to stay in Cleveland for a total of I think 3 weeks. And when I was at the hotel, I needed caretakers too. So my parents' best friends, who I call aunt and uncle, because they're family, they stayed with me in the hotel for a week. So they also put their life on hold to take care of me for that time. I think it was like 10 days or something like that in the hotel before I could go back to Rochester. My mom, on the other hand, stayed for over a month
in the hospital. Yeah.
She was weeks in the hospital. Maybe not even more than 2, but I had to stay in the hotel and in Cleveland for over a month because she had to go back to the hospital to tests and all that sort of stuff. But she, is doing great. That number I talked about before is the best the number could be. Like that whole, it was just it couldn't have. It was a story with a happy ending. And now she is home, retired. My dad's retired. There's been other, medical issues that come with getting older, but that portion was just so rough, and it was over. Like,
wow.
Yeah, it was, and I recovered pretty well, and I have a giant badass scar, but I love it. It's kind of like a badge of honor. Her scar is even bigger. But yeah, I mean, the Cleveland Clinic like gave me my mom back. It was great.
As did you.
Sure, yeah. But I mean, because of them, the care of that hospital is something else. They're doing great stuff there. It was really cool.
That's wonderful.
And so I actually, something I find very therapeutic is writing. I'm not a writer, but when I'm like confused about things or like something's bothering me, I like to write about it because I feel like it organizes my thoughts. Mm-hmm. And I had done that about the operation because it was, obviously a very great thing, something I'll obviously never regret doing, but it's also like the greatest thing I'll ever do, my entire life, which is fine. But it's also, that was something I didn't expect. Like that, that it's weird at 24. Like I know that like 85 years old when I'm on my deathbed, that will be my life defining moment. I feel like I don't think I could ever do anything for the rest of my life nearly as important.
Although I will challenge that and say by having this conversation with me and the 50,000-60,000 people that are going to listen to it, that some of them may in turn do the same, to make the decision to save someone else's life.
Yeah.
And so guess what? It isn't the only thing you've done. You will continue. Your legacy is exponential.
Sure. That's a much better way of thinking about it than the way I thought about it. But I've been able to take that, which seemed like I was living in the shadow, like 24 years old. I'm, the best thing I'll ever do. And so, and that's kind of what led me to move to Nashville, because it's a really weird feeling knowing that like I could die tomorrow and I lived a life worth living, like for the rest of my life, meaningful, never, no matter how much I fail in life, my life will never be defined by failure because of this one thing. So where I was looking at it as like, oh man, like I'll never do anything as great, I turned that around and be like, so now I can do whatever I want, for lack of a better term. Like I felt like I could take the chance to move to Nashville to try to find my way in entertainment, because even if I fail and like 10 years I'm moving back to Rochester and living with my parents while I figure something else out, even though I failed at that, my life won't be defined by that failure. And that is a really awesome freedom that I feel like people should be able to have without having to do what I did, People should feel that kind of freedom to do what would make them truly happy because I feel like if you want to do something like that, and it doesn't have to be, I'm being a musician or an actor, it could be owning your own small business, going back to school, whatever it is, and you're just afraid that if you fail at that you have wasted that portion of your life trying, that worried about what other people will think of you if you try and fail. That's all toxic way of thinking. And for me, it took like something like that to be like, to put all that out of my head. And like, because I wanted to do music from an early age, and I always convinced myself it wasn't possible, or that it wasn't going to make money, or what are you going to do, open up a philosophy store type of mentality. And it really just, I was like, it kind of like a second chapter. I actually wrote an essay about this experience that you can read at gregrood.com, where I get a little bit more detail on the whole thing.
That's R-O-O-D.
R-O-O-D.
G-R-E-G-R-O-O-D.
And why did I bring that up?
Because you were talking about your essay and writing about your feelings.
Oh yeah, just that I feel that, it really, it's allowed me to, I talk about in the essay that I hearken it back to Die Hard, or like movie sequels, where like everything, my life leading up to the transplant was Die Hard 1, it was the first movie, and everything after is Die Hard 2. Die Hard 2 is not as good as Die Hard 1. Everyone knows that, but that's fine. You can still enjoy Die Hard 2. And like I've just seen it as like it gave me a very clear-cut second chapter in my life, where I feel like, I gave my mom new life, and she in turn gave me new life and the freedom to come here and make awesome friends and I never saw myself getting into podcasting, and I've loved every second of that.
Isn't it great? I love it too.
It's so much fun.
Yeah.
And like, I'm going to be starting putting on some live shows around Nashville. So all this stuff it's just, I finally was given the freedom myself to do something. And I wish more people would do that without having to do,
freeing themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I feel like so many people don't. And it's not just, like I said, it's not just entertainment. It could be like wanting to have a family, like my mom did. But you just do it. Figure out whatever that is and make steps towards doing it, and don't worry about failing, because if that's setting yourself up only to fail.
Yeah.
In my mind.
It's lovely. It's a great message. You are remarkable, and the story is remarkable. And
the reason why I wanted to come on and like the reason why I finally wrote this thing was because I had been reading the things that I had written in the past when I was like dealing with some of these things after, and realized that enough time had passed, because it's going to be 4 years on August 4th, that like I finally had a perspective on it. I had finally enough time and space between it where I actually, if I had talked about it right away, I didn't have time to learn from it, and I feel like I finally have. And I'm sure I'll even have better things to say about it later in life, but I finally feel like I know how it's affected me and how I've used it to better myself, and I felt like that was why it was time to tell it.
Plus, you're a philosophy major, so
yeah.
You're going to keep reflecting back as the years go on.
Yeah.
By nature of the things that motivate and move you.
Right.
Yeah, it's lovely.
It was.
Thank you so much. Tell everybody again how they can find you, all your podcasts, all your websites, all the stuff.
So you can go to gregrood.com. That's ROOD. You can find everything there. I have links to my music. I have I do drum videos, Greg Rood Percussion on Instagram and YouTube. The Hypothetically Speaking podcast, which is
really funny.
And that's like my cope, and like your show is so amazing because it's very inspiring and uplifting, and people can get a lot of value that actually helps them deal with stuff they're dealing with, where
Thank you.
Hypothetically Speaking is kind of like everyone deals with so much crap in their lives. Here's an hour, just laugh. This is silly, and that's why I like it. And so that's Hypothetically Speaking, which you can find anywhere you find podcasts. Same thing with Three Dicks Picks. Like I said, it's movies, music, and more.
And I'll put links to everything on Hey Human Podcast links page. So
perfect. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's everything I got going on right now. And I just thank you so much for letting me come on.
Honestly, it is my honor to hear your story.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I wish your mother a very long life.
Yes.
And everyone in your family for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This was very nice.
Bye, everybody.